In the previous segment we looked at marking the floor in preparation for laying the tiles. Now we're ready to adhere our ceramic tiles to the floor. I'm going to lay a straight row of tiles down the center of the room, and so I'll spread the adhesive between the chalk lines that I made earlier.
There are two types of adhesive, known as thin set, used for this purpose. Thin set that is pre-mixed, and thin set that is dry and has to be mixed with water. We're using a pre-mixed adhesive, which is a little more expensive than bags of adhesive that have to be mixed, but saves a lot of time and energy in carrying and mixing. Spread the adhesive evenly about 1/4 of an inch deep and about 1/2 an inch inside your chalk line. The grout will spread out to the edge of the tiles when you seat them. You can use the flat side of the trowel or the side with the teeth. It really doesn't matter, as long as you end up with uniform lines of adhesive that are about 1/4 of an inch deep. This is most effectively done by holding the trowel at a 45-degree angle and pushing the trowel teeth to the floor. Put excess adhesive back into the bucket and mix it into your next scoop. In the previous segment, we marked the center point on all 4 sides of a tile. This will be the center tile, and I'll place it into position in the adhesive and give it a little twist to seat it firmly. Line up the 4 marker lines with the chalk lines and check that it's straight and level. Now we can start with laying the rest of the tile. I like to scrape a gap at the end of each tile with the trowel or a handy finger before I lay the next one. In this way, the adhesive won't squeeze up between the tiles when you press them down. Spare grout can be wiped onto the floor or onto the bottom of the next tile. Place 2 plastic spaces between the tiles, close to each end, to create the correct gap. Carry on down the center of the room until you reach the end mark. Tiling is a pretty dirty job, so old work clothes are recommended. Tap each tile a few times with the rubber mallet to seat it firmly in place in the adhesive. Once your first line of tile is laid, check that the tiles are level with each other and that corners are not sticking up. If they are, tap them down with the mallet. Check each measurement again just to be certain, and then lay the rest of the tiles on the other side of the center tile. The tiles that we're using for this project are standard 12-inch square tiles, so one tile covers 1 square foot. Actually, each tile is slightly smaller, at 11 3/4 inches on all sides. However, the grout gap between each laid tile is 1/4 inch for this size of tile, and so 1 square foot is covered for each tile laid. This makes estimating and measuring a floor quite easy. If you're tiling a 12 by 12 foot room, you'll need 12 multiplied by 12, or 144 tiles. There are usually 11 of this size of tile in a box, so 14 boxes will do the job in the perfect world. You'll have to purchase about 20% extra to cover breakages that you find in the box and those that occur on the job. Once your line of tile is laid, take a break. Stand back and look at the floor from different angles. You can still take up the line of tiles if necessary and start again. Next, we will lay a line of tiles at right angles at one end of our tile line. Using a large right angle, draw a line at exactly the end of the last tile. Now measure the distance from the center line that we laid earlier to the line that you've just drawn. Move the tape measure over towards the wall and mark the same measurement on the floor. Draw a line or snap a chalk line between the marks. Dry lay a line of tiles with spaces and draw a line at the end of the last tile. A quick measure check will ensure that your new line of tiles is square and you're ready to spread adhesive in the same way as you did with the center tile line and lay the tiles in place. Don't forget to give each tile a little twist to seat it firmly in place in the adhesive. Tap each tile a few times with the rubber mallet. A hammer used for this job will crack ceramic tiles. A rubber mallet does the job perfectly. Do the same measurements and lay the tiles on the other side of the center line. We now have the basis of our room done and are ready to lay the rest of the tiles. I use two methods to accomplish this. One method is to lay tiles from the end of the last line on each side of the center line. This is done by applying enough adhesive for 1 or 2 lines of tiles and then laying the tiles. Any adhesive that squeezes up between the tiles must be removed immediately with a wet rag, or it will cause problems during the grouting process. Adhesive that sticks up in the gap between the tiles will be a different color to the grout and will stick out like a sore thumb once the room's being grouted. A plastic spacer is placed at each corner to keep all gaps equal. Precise spacing is very important, as is tapping down each tile to seat it firmly into the adhesive. A second method is to run a line of tiles on the outside of the room and tile the gap later. I prefer this method as it allows me to measure the gap between the center and the outside rows of tiles and ensure that the results will be exactly square. It also means that once the perimeter is laid, there are less tiles to lay in the middle, which seems to make the job quicker, which of course is all in the mind, but as long as I can keep myself happy. Now all this bending and kneeling takes its toll on the body, so I've developed a second system, which is much easier on the joints. I've brought in a long folding table and placed a pile of tiles on the table. I've also placed the adhesive bucket on another adhesive bucket so that I can reach it easily when standing upright. Placing a row of tiles upside down in a straight line and with each end touching, I can scoop a dollop of adhesive from the bucket and spread it along the tiles. Using the flat edge of the trowel, I clean the edges and lay each one into position with a little twist and place the spacers. The tiles should not be stepped on for a minimum of 24 hours when laid on concrete, or they'll move out of position. Certain newly developed adhesives make it possible to lay tiles directly onto linoleum or even onto wooden surfaces. However, adhesives will take longer to set on linoleum, as the moisture in the adhesive cannot be drawn into the linoleum as it is drawn into concrete. This way of working leaves me only slightly exhausted at the end of the day, as opposed to being completely exhausted if I kneel all day. Choose the way that works for you and invent different methods that work for you while employing the basic principles that I've shown here. The final few lines are always a pleasure to lay if you know that your layout is square and looks good. Take breaks often to check your work and to rest the body. Taking time will make the job much more enjoyable than hurrying to finish it.
Well, there you are, tightly spaced, level tiles that I'm sure that famous German tiler Herr Neisentight would approve of. In our next segment, we'll cover cutting and fitting tiles to the edges. Join me for that.